phone, Dave. Is
So
that right?
Pete, are we going to talk about what just happened?
What, me falling over, crashing into the set and destroying the background, and spilling my drink everywhere.
And I'm afraid we didn't have the camera rolling, so apologies everyone for completely missing that.
I'm not doing that again. I'm not doing it again. It's not happening.
We'll see about that.
Mm.
So anyway, Pete, how was the holiday? You back?
Yeah, it was all right. You know, British weather prevailed, so it was raining some of the time, despite being the middle of the summer. And yeah, but we went to a zoo.
Did you?
Yeah, went to a zoo. Wasn't much there, but there was a baguette in a cage with a sign underneath that said "Bred in captivity."
Can I quit?
You can. Then I get all the revenue this channel generates to myself.
Don't spend it all at once, Pete. Oh
No.
my goodness. Well, I think that's a new low. Even Erin was shaking her head there, Pete.
Well, it was actually quite terrifying going to the zoo. All joking aside, when we got back to the car, we'd left the windows open because it was one of the warmer days, and there was a snake on the dashboard of the car. Which, can you imagine how terrifying that was? A snake on the dashboard of the car. And the zookeeper or one of the animal handlers came out and said, don't worry, it's harmless, it's just a windscreen viper.
Yeah.
You're not meant to have pauses on podcasts.
I realise that, but it just gets worse, Pete. I feel like I'm being abused. This is like some kind of abuse, isn't it?
Well, so is setting up my chair so I fall back into the background. Don't think I don't know what you did there.
If you like. Hey, Pete, what do you think of this?
Oh,
And I should, obviously, for people who are not watching us on YouTube, and really, why would you want to watch us? But there we go. It's youtube.com/The Constant Geekery Podcast. And on the desk, I have my Mac Mini, but it's sat on top.
is this the new Mac Mini? Is this the new design that they've been talking about?
No.
But we could put that on the thumbnail and just say new Mac Mini design ?
That would be clickbait, and we don't do, or at least we try not to do that, which is probably a mistake because apparently clickbait works really well, and people make a lot of money out of it. But there we go.
Yeah.
No, what it is a USB dock, but interestingly, inside it has space for a hard drive.
Does it now?
So a way to increase the number of ports and the storage on your Mac Mini, and I have to say,
It looks really cool.
it does look good. So video coming on the main channel, if you're interested in that. That's youtube.com/Constant Geekery. Almost.
You nearly got that wrong, didn't
I
you?
nearly did.
Because you're getting old,
Getting older.
like me. We're all getting older.
Pete, I'm going to dive straight into what is probably going to be our main topic this week. We're covering a few news items, but this particular news item doesn't appear to have had lots of coverage on various tech channels, and I think it's quite a big story.
Yeah.
So people will remember, I'm sure, that nVidia have a planned takeover of ARM, the chip designer. $40 billion. Pretty sizable.
Pretty
deal.
hefty, isn't it?
And we've spoken about it before, but what's happened is the Competition and Markets Authority, the CMA in Britain, has been investigating the deal. And what they're saying, apparently, is that they think it will weaken competition,
Yep.
stifle innovation,
Yep.
will mean more expensive and lower quality products in cutting-edge technology. So they're talking about things like gaming, data centers, Internet of Things, smart speakers, self-driving cars.
I think they're right.
Interesting. I mean, I seem to recall when we discussed this, we weren't overly confident in nVidia's statements that they...
We weren't enthusiastic about it from memory because when bigger companies, big faceless corporates take over small innovative companies, a lot of the time, not always, but a lot of the time, that just stifles what that company was doing. You don't see it go from strength to strength because it's got all these resources behind you. It's almost like it just becomes a drop in the ocean of that big company's portfolio.
I think it's a massive acquisition for NVIDIA that really helps NVIDIA, but does it help everyone else? I mean, look
Put that there, look at that.
that's a nice mug you've got there, Pete.
That's the new Constant Geekery mug. Mine's a blue one.
And I know that you've got Vimto in your mug because you just spilt it all over the set when you fell over.
And there's still some left.
And there's still some left, yeah. Yeah, and I'm rocking the bright pink mug. I'm not going to say that drinks taste better out of a Constant Geekery mug.
But they don't taste worse.
They certainly don't taste worse, no. So shop.constantgeekery.com if you want to get yourself a Constant Geekery mug.
That was a nice segue into product placement right in the middle of a sentence.
It was fantastic.
What were you saying?
I can't remember.
Something about...
I was about to talk about Herman Hauser.
Yeah.
Now, Herman Hauser was a co-founder of ARM and co-founder of Acorn, which came before ARM. ARM sort of came out of Acorn computers in the UK back in the late 80s, early 90s. So Herman Hauser's been quite outspoken about this deal. He was when it was first announced, and he's continued to be. I don't know if he actually has any interest in ARM. When I say interest, I mean does he do any work for ARM? Does he own any of it anymore? I mean, he can talk about SoftBank, who currently own ARM, shouldn't sell it, and this, that, and the other. But didn't he sell his shares in ARM?
I think he did.
There we go. Here's what he says. So first of all, job losses in the UK, and he thinks it will be bad for Cambridge, which is where ARM has its head office.
Yeah.
Now, there's no basis for him saying this other than what he personally believes. And NVIDIA have said they won't close down the Cambridge office. But I think it's fairly inevitable that if NVIDIA buys ARM, it will relocate the majority of stuff to Silicon Valley. And that will result in job losses in the UK. And that's what Herman Hauser is saying. Now, for people outside of the UK, are they that bothered about... It's quite a UK-specific argument, I think, isn't it?
Well, it is. But I think it's more than that, isn't it? It's not just the job losses in the UK. I mean, the UK, back in the 80s and the 90s, used to have quite a lot of innovation. And there's a lot of skilled engineers and people that are UK-based. Now, you could argue, well, they can go wherever, but what if they don't want to? And no one wants job losses anywhere. So if you've already got a job, relocating something to somewhere else is not great for the people that affects.
Yeah, I can see his point on that. Something that he said in an interview, which I thought was really, really interesting, is he said, ARM is the Switzerland of the semiconductor industry. It needs to be independent. What do you think about that?
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. This was one of my concerns with NVIDIA taking over, was the fact that despite what they said they will do, which we'll come on to in a minute, there was always that risk that whenever a commercial entity like NVIDIA takes something over, their agenda is going to ride roughshod over the original aims of the company. And ARM makes it very... That would be a notification right there, Dave.
It would. Let me put my iPad on silent.
Mine will probably do it in a minute. ARM... let me take a step back for a minute. We live in a world today where a lot of big companies like Apple and Google, Amazon, hold the lion's share of the... I say innovation. In a lot of ways, they stifle innovation because it's very difficult for smaller players and startups to get in on the act because just the investment costs are huge. And ARM, to a degree, mitigates that because the fact that you can license an ARM design for a modest fee, they've got, I think, startup programs and things like that, means that it makes it easier for innovators to get into the market and develop something. And that's where the independence needs to be there. I think, can you honestly see NVIDIA supporting an arm of its business, no pun intended, a division of its business where potentially there's threats to its own main business starting up?
Yeah, well, that's a good argument. I mean, I think it's amazing that ARM does support startups, people who just wouldn't be able to afford the licensing fees otherwise. But I think they have subsidies and various different programs to help that along. Will NVIDIA continue to do that? I suspect they'll argue yes, because that's what they've said they're going to do. Does this affect NVIDIA's core business of GPU? Probably not, but what they're trying to do is get into a new market. And if they're developing ARM, you can kind of see them keeping the best bits for themselves to give themselves a competitive edge, because ARM is becoming big now, isn't it? Apple has opened up Pandora's box, it seems, with what they've done with M1, which isn't a licensed ARM chip design. It's the ARM instruction set that they're using with their own design, but that's also something that you can do with ARM. And now we've got this issue where their former head of chip design has gone to Qualcomm. So Qualcomm are now looking to make notebook chips running on ARM. Microsoft is already working with Qualcomm on that, and has already made 2 notebook chips, if you like. NVIDIA want to do it. Amazon are making ARM chips for their data center, so they're already doing that. The fastest supercomputers in the world are running on ARM, and this is a big thing. NVIDIA wants a big slice of that pie. Is it going to remain that kind of Swiss
army knife?
No, I think he's referring more to the independence.
Yeah, no, I realise that, but it seemed like a good segue to pop in there. Segue is not the right word.
No. Well,
but anyway,
I think it is good because it stays independent. So just in case anybody's completely not understanding what we're talking about, maybe you're new to this kind of tech. So ARM just designs chips, and pretty much every phone out there, every tablet, and lots of Internet of Things devices have ARM chips in them of varying degrees of power.
Yeah.
You can have very, very cheap ARM computers, like, for example, the Raspberry Pi. And you can have more expensive ones, like the Apple M1. ARM doesn't sell the chips, it just sells designs and licenses to its intellectual property. And because it's independent like that, it means anybody, literally anybody, can go and make an ARM chip. They can commission a foundry, they can do a design, and get a device up and running. And I think that is hugely important for the tech industry and for future innovation.
Yeah, and we've seen this before, where you've got something that is, I mean, ARM isn't quite open source if you use the software analogy here, but it's as close as you can get to, I would say, in the chip world. And we've seen open source software that's been acquired by bigger players. The one that comes to mind, and correct me on this if I'm wrong, is it Oracle that bought MySQL?
Yeah.
Which was an open source database infrastructure. And they made all sorts of promises about what they were going to do with that, and kind of reneged on a lot of them, didn't they?
Yeah, technically it's now a commercial product, but there is a fork of that, MariaDB.
MariaDB, but it's a fork. And that's my point, isn't it? That when you have a big company, in this case Oracle, taking over something, they might make all these promises and reassurances. Of course they're going to do that because they want to get the sale over the line. But after that, yes, there may be some contractual obligations, but you can guarantee your bets are off because they're going to operate in the interest of the bottom line of that business, not in the overall aims of ARM as a business.
Yeah. And, Herman, he doesn't believe that NVIDIA is going to keep its promises, and says that the UK government will have to have a legally binding contract with NVIDIA. That's
How's
not
that going to work?
Well, it's not going to work, is it? NVIDIA will be governed by US law. I don't think they'll be answerable to it at all. Something that he did say, though, he mentioned the fact that the UK government has subsidised and bailed out other tech companies.
That's true.
With taxpayer funds.
Not just tech companies.
No. And he said, why doesn't the government put a billion or so into an IPO? So put the company back on the stock market. SoftBank took it off. It was publicly traded. Now it isn't. So what he's saying is do an IPO again. Let the UK government buy a large portion of the shares to maintain a level of control. I think that's a pretty cool idea. and it would achieve its desired end, and it's a pretty low risk investment, I would have said, for UK taxpayers.
Yeah, and it does. I mean, we don't have particularly political views, but I think the UK government did make a statement sometime last year that they wanted the UK to be a centre for sort of tech innovation, another Silicon Valley. This would be a great kind of flag in the ground, or stake in the ground behind that ambition, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And it tackles some of the other issues that arise from this deal, which is that if ARM becomes US owned, it's then it has to abide by the US trade laws, and there are certain territories where the product can't be exported. So suddenly you've got, I mean, Herman Hauser was talking primarily about UK companies, but I imagine there are companies existing all around the world who have, who are using ARM and who want freedom to trade wherever they want. But if it becomes US owned, that freedom will
disappear.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's fair to say that at the moment it's not a British-owned company, is it?
No, well, it's owned by SoftBank, but it is still based in the UK, so it is a UK company. It's just that the ownership of the business is elsewhere. What nVidia are talking about, they're sort of saying the same thing. Well, it will be a US-owned company, but SoftBank is an investment group. Then nVidia is
very different.
Yeah, I think there is a conflict of interest here. Now, the CMA has worked with other competition authorities around the world in its initial investigation, and it would seem that they'll now wait for a response from nVidia. So the deal is far from done, and it could well be the case that it gets vetoed.
How would you feel about that?
That's a difficult one. I think it would be better if it wasn't owned by nVidia. I think it is better if ARM stays independent and continues to operate in the same way that it has done. I think any foreign owner, not even foreign owner, any owner in the tech industry that buys into ARM, even if they do so with the altruistic intention of maintaining the business as it is, will be unable to resist temptation to give themselves a competitive edge.
I mean, Herman Hauser used the term ARM is the Switzerland of the semiconductor industry. I don't presume to know more than Herman about this sort of thing, but it strikes me that a better analogy would be they're the ISO of the chip industry. When you think about how many people are using ARM licensed designs now, they are the standard bearer. This is how you build these chips. Here's the standards. If you start giving, if ISO became owned by a private company, you can bet your bottom dollar, there will be the international standards, but they then start developing their own proprietary standards that could only work with their equipment, and it just wouldn't work, would it? It has, the ISO, the International Standards Organization, has to be independent, because the moment a commercial body owns it, then how can it be a standard? It's a commercial, it's proprietary, surely.
Well, perhaps that's the answer, is that it shouldn't be privately owned, and perhaps the various governments of the world need to talk to each other, and maybe it should be just something that's for the people. But there we go.
Yeah.
Crazy ideas, but interesting that it continues to rumble on. I don't think there's any guarantee that nVidia is going to get ARM. I didn't think that when it was first announced. I still don't think that. I just can't see them overcoming all of these obstacles. But who knows what will happen behind the scenes, and what things might change hands to make things happen.
Who knows? Watch this space, or any other news outlet that has more authority than us.
Yeah. Something else I saw in the news, Pete, the Tesla robot. I think we've got to talk about the Tesla robot.
Yeah.
So this is Elon Musk announced this in what appeared to be in a sort of off-the-cuff presentation. It wasn't like tightly scripted like Apple do. It was.
Do you imagine there's lots of people at Tesla going, the what? What?
Yeah.
It's just the resuscitation dummy we do for health and safety training.
Oh dear. Yeah, it's so here we go. 5'8" humanoid robot for boring, repetitious, and dangerous work. Pete.
So you could replace yourself on the podcast.
You probably would get more intelligent conversation,
Well,
and you might be able to program it, Pete, to react in a more positive way to your jokes.
No, I don't think there's enough processing power in the world to do that. That's your next challenge, by the way. But yeah, boring, repetitious, and dangerous work. So, yeah, I guess a lot of the...
Who knows? Who knows what they mean by that? There was a talk of it going to get your shopping. This is just horrendous. I hate this. You know, that we've talked about this before, this kind of dystopian view of the future owned by robots. And in every movie where this happens, there's not a good outcome, is there?
No.
It will invariably end up, if Tesla continue to make this robot, there will come a time where Will Smith will be on top of some building somewhere with about 1,000 of these things trying to kill him.
Yeah, but apparently...
Right.
Apparently, it's limited mechanically, so they won't be able to do that.
Go on.
So it's set so that I think its maximum speed is 5 miles an hour, so you can outrun it. Apparently,
Erin won't be able to outrun it.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing.
But actually, I don't mind that. That's fine. It gets Erin first. We get away safely. So
Yeah, we could throw her to it.
we could.
That would be really good. But 5 miles an hour. No disrespect to my poor mum, who's no longer with us, but there's no way she could ever do 5 miles an hour in her latter years, unless she was in the car. So the fact that she could outrun this terror robot, and apparently it would be limited physically, so it couldn't like crush your windpipe or something. Well, how does that equate with boring, repetitive, dangerous work? Have you ever lifted shopping bags or done mining? Those two analogous things.
But this is a Tesla robot. It'll just tap into the Tesla mainframe thing, which will be in some room somewhere at Tesla.
Work out where you are.
And call a Tesla. So it will just get in a car. The self-driving car will then accelerate to way beyond 5 miles per hour and run Erin over.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, and not only that, but if you've ever watched any kind of suspense film where the baddie is after the goodie, okay, invariably the baddie is slower than the goodie. There's a sort of methodical plod to build drama. Yeah, and the goodies getting away, and then they fall over, or they get caught in some bushes or cobweb, or they go around the corner, they think they're safe from it, and then they look round, and there's the Tesla robot ready to get them. Probably just drop one of Elon Musk's rockets on their head. It's going to end badly.
well, if it even starts at all, Elon Musk says there'll be a prototype next year, but I'm sort of siding with you on this. I'm not convinced that everyone at Tesla knew what was coming when he announced this.
What they're going to do is they're going to get a rubber mask of Arnold Schwarzenegger's face, put it over a resuscitation doll, and put some strings and pulleys on it. Strings and pulleys, that's what it will be.
Anyway, it's all very clever. Tesla, they spend precisely zero on advertising and marketing.
Well, they pay Elon Musk.
I guess.
That's their budget for
Yeah,
marketing.
that's true.
It's a PR stunt, isn't it?
Let's move on. Let's talk about PayPal. Wasn't PayPal Elon Musk's business? Or have I got that wrong?
No, it
Am I
wasn't
mixing
eBay.
up?
eBay started PayPal.
Oh, no, they didn't. They bought it.
No, I thought they came up with the concept for it, and then they were forced to sell it.
No, I'm pretty sure PayPal existed before eBay.
You sure?
Yeah.
Oh.
Someone will let us know in the comments section. Erin, you're sat there with an iPad. You could do some research whilst...
Tell us. I'm pretty sure that eBay developed PayPal so that people could safely pay for things on eBay, and then later they became two separate companies. That's my stake in the ground. You think something different. Erin's going to look it up live on the podcast and let us know in a minute. But you wanted to talk about them anyway.
I did, because PayPal has been offering cryptocurrency in, I think, the US. And now it's going to be available in the UK. So you can spend and hold crypto. So we're talking only 4 cryptos at the moment: Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, and Bitcoin Cash. So you can hold that within your PayPal.
Good.
And spend it.
Good. That's great. Good.
I'm getting the impression you're not into crypto.
I'm about as into crypto as I am into terror dealing, death dealing robots.
What do you think about? I mean, the big argument against crypto, or a lot of people are making the argument against crypto, based on its environmental cost.
As I understand it, some cryptocurrencies use more energy than others to be generated. Bitcoin is one of the worst. I think there are other ones out there that are more environmentally friendly.
Yeah, so the combined electricity required to mine Bitcoin and something, I think it makes it 550,000 times more energy required for a Bitcoin transaction than, say, for a MasterCard transaction.
That's crazy.
However, what I will say before anybody gets upset in the comment section is that there are two sides to this argument, and it's very easy to poke holes in both sides of the argument. Erin, do you have an answer for us?
Yeah, so Elon Musk was the co-founder of it, and then it was sold to eBay in 2002.
So I was right.
I think in your definition of right, Pete, then you were right.
Thank you, Erin. I stand corrected.
I could have done a nice segue, see, from Tesla to PayPal based on Elon Musk if I'd have done my homework
If you'd have done your homework instead of getting it done, basically, Erin's our live researcher. Thank you, Erin.
Thank you. Anyway, ultimately the environmental cost is quite high. A lot of this is happening in China, and whilst some of the energy being provided is from renewables, the simple truth is that a lot of it is coal. Coal-fired power goes into mining Bitcoin, and you can make all sorts of arguments, with traditional currency, that there's an environmental impact to all of that as well. Because
it's easy for you to say. Carry on.
Because you've got processing of the transactions, people involved, and various other things. So I don't think it's quite as simple as, this is taking up a lot of electricity. However, Bitcoin each year is using the sort of same amount of electricity as the Netherlands.
Yeah. And is that calculation, you may not be able to answer this, maybe another one for our researcher, is that just the processing electricity? Because, of course, if you've got any kind of significant number of machines generating Bitcoin, on top of the energy required to run the processors, there's going to be heat.
Yeah, so that's the overall estimated average consumption,
right,
and it does vary. The people who speak for Bitcoin use the lower end of the spectrum, and the people speaking against it use the higher end of the estimation, and there's quite a big gap between them. I think that the sad thing about it is a lot of people are getting into Bitcoin trading because they think they're going to make a load of money, and they're using apps like Binance, which has been pretty much banned by every bank in the UK now. You've probably had messages about that. I know I have. Because people are losing money on it. It's just as it's very, very volatile, and
it feels like a bit of a South Sea bubble to me.
Yeah, perhaps. I think the original goal is quite a laudable goal, and I think it's good. But you've got all of these other coins appearing, and you can't tell me that's not because they're looking at the pound signs or the dollar signs or whatever.
Of course they are.
Because they want to make money out of it, and at the end of the day, yeah,
which we're not going to do. Speaking of which, have you mentioned to the subscribers yet that we're sending out some NFT pictures of us on the podcast?
We're never doing that.
Some one-offs, So if you want to
falling off his chair,
start bidding on those. Yeah, unfortunately, that was never recorded, so that never happened.
Okay.
So.
Pete, you wanted to talk briefly about the launch of the Lumina
webcam. The Lumina webcam is launching today. I got an email last night saying we're going live in 24 hours from Mike and Raymond. Mike and Raymond, if you're listening, which I'm sure you're not, but if you are, I'd love one of your Luminas. So, that's launching today. This is basically this new amazing webcam that... I think it's 4K. It deals with lighting. It's very, very clever.
It does look very clever. It's AI, so it does the kind of blurring the background malarkey, the color calibration.
If you stuck one of those on top of the Tesla robot with the AI, that's when you're in trouble. Don't ever put them together.
Okay. I see the countdown is now at 5 hours and 44 minutes, but I can't help but notice, Pete, looking at the website now, is that it says countdown to our, not just countdown to our launch. You've missed a key word there, and that word is Indiegogo. It's countdown to our Indiegogo launch.
It's still a launch.
It's a launch of a campaign to dredge up some funds in order to do a launch of an actual product.
But it's a launch. It's a launch, and I'm really excited about it. I know a couple of weeks ago we talked about vaporware, but I'm now contradicting myself because I'm excited about the launch of this product because I want one.
But on the basis of the fact that it doesn't exist yet, then presumably all of these example videos that I can see on their
beautifully
their website,
lit SLRs.
It's not the actual camera in all likelihood.
No.
And there are just merely some renders for you to base your purchasing decision on.
Would you purchase one?
If it actually existed and it does what it says it does, yeah, I probably would.
Well, if it ever comes out, I'm going to get one.
Okay, good. Well, get me one too, but that's probably 2 years down the road.
We'll see. Let's see. I reckon by the end of the year.
Okay. Well, there's optimism for you.
Yeah.
I won't be able to afford one because I've got to buy the Steam Deck when that eventually appears.
Yeah, I've got a few. Got a new iPad to get at some point. This is actually starting to slow down now.
Is it?
Very interesting. And after all my crowing about how it's just as quick as yours, it's starting to slow down. And of course,
are you sure that you haven't just watched my latest video showing how the Thunderbolt speed in iPadOS 15 is increased?
I have watched that,
right?
But that's not why I'm thinking
Okay.
it's slowing down. It's switching between apps and various other things. But of course, I'm also going to have to get one of the new laptops that is inevitably going to come out.
This is going to be an expensive year. That's all I can say.
Probably.
Very expensive.
Anyway.
Pete, I believe that brings us to the end of our news segment, and it's time for...
The rumour mill.
Nicely done. I feel like felt like I was sort of, in Asia. Could have pictured myself.
Yeah. Today's rumour mill is sponsored by most of the tech companies in the world.
Excellent. Your musical skills, interestingly, haven't developed or progressed at all since last time.
No, that's because I'm just randomly hitting points on the screen.
Mm.
I do have some nebulous musical skills, but they require a trombone or a piano, which I don't have here.
I feel that we need to get a trombone and hear that.
It's been about 30 years since I played the trombone, but I'd
feel
be up
that we
for
need
it.
to get a trombone and hear that.
If you get a trombone, I will gladly brush up my skills and give you a little.
Okay, good. On the rumour mill today, I've selected 3 rumours for our discussion,
Yes.
and you will rate them either red, amber, or green based on how likely or accurate you feel they are. So, our first rumour mill item comes from lots of different sources, Pete.
Yes.
Lots of people are saying a new Mac Mini with the M1X is coming imminently.
Yes. And it's not that. Even though we could have used that, it's out of shot now. I am pointing to the M1 Mini with its extra thing, which does look very cool. I reckon we could have got away with that,
We possibly could have,
But yeah, so lots of people are saying this. What are they saying about it?
that it will have an M1X and more ports. So I don't think that that's really a big stretch. No one's putting their neck on the proverbial chopping board for that, are they?
No.
But they are saying new design.
I think it's going to be an M2, by the way. I don't think there's going to be an M1X. But just as an aside, because I'm sick of seeing M1X everywhere, and I was right the first time with the other thing, so I'm going for M2.
I think you're wrong on that.
Wow.
I think there will be an X version of the M1, and I think M2 will come next year. And M2 will be a revision of the M1 for the consumer-grade devices, and then there will be an M2X, which will be the enthusiast grade.
Or will they go for P?
P?
P for professional, pro.
Who knows? They'll probably call it Max or something. They usually go for things that sound like feminine hygiene products. Don't they?
Stop it.
I'm not sure about the whole new design thing. But, a few weeks ago we mentioned about the Euro-Asian economic whatever it is and model numbers being registered with them. And there were 2 new Mac model numbers registered. And we thought at the time, well, that makes sense because everyone's expecting MacBook Pro in a smaller and larger size. So where's the extra model number for the Mac Mini?
No.
Or is this a new thing? And why would they change the design of the Mac Mini at this point?
Well, and also, we talked about the iMac a while back and how that really was due for an update. But actually, there's nothing wrong with the Mac Mini, is there? As a piece of design, it is slabtastic.
It is pretty good. They could make it smaller. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, but why would you want to?
Well, I just wonder about the timing of it. I think it would make more sense to redesign it and then have, there's always been a couple of levels of Mac Mini, hasn't there? You've been able to spec up, a high-level Intel one with more ports on it and a consumer-grade one. Since the 2018 model, there was a kind of differentiation. So I feel like the M1 is that entry-level consumer-grade model. So it makes sense to have an M1X, but why not just make it the same design but in the space grey finish?
That would make a lot more sense.
But then when they do a new design, the consumer ones get all of the funky colours.
That would also make sense. It will be interesting. I think we're only just starting to see how, because we graded Apple products into three scales, didn't we, a while back?
3 categories, if you like.
So it was
sort of consumer,
enthusiast, pro.
Yeah.
I wonder if we're going to see a slight divergence from that, or will rather more a clearer delineation between those 3. And we're only just starting to see that with the new iMacs with the new colours, and it will take another couple of years for us to see how Apple distinguish their products. Be interesting.
Yeah, could happen. So, what do we think of this particular set of rumours?
Well, it's a bit of a mix because, of course, there's going to be an M1X at some point. Beyond that, I mean, it's already got a fair amount of ports. I'm going to put it as an amber, other than the M1X or whatever it's called, a new chip. So I'm going to say it's a scoop or a green for the chip, and it's a poop for the others until we know more.
This is something new you're introducing.
Scoop is a news a rumour that we think's a scoop.
Right.
Poop is something we think's rubbish.
Okay.
Because it's easier than going green, amber, red, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. I quite like green, amber,
All right.
red.
Oh,
I feel like there's a fairly big gap between a scoop and a fetid pile of stinking turd.
Yes, that's true.
Oh, I feel I'd probably go amber with this if we were sticking to the old
All
traffic
right,
light
let's
system.
stick to amber. Let's stick to amber.
It makes perfect sense to have a high-end Mac Mini with 4 Thunderbolt ports, which will only be possible with the new chip. They've already offering it. Get my words out right. They're already offering it with the 10 gigabit Ethernet. So bear in mind, a lot of these get bought for data centers and other stuff. So I can see. I mean, the Thunderbolt ports probably won't be relevant to a data center, but the creatives that are using these things and who want a more powerful version might want more ports.
They might. Yeah.
More screens attached to it, because you can only attach 2 screens without doing jiggery pokery with DisplayPort hubs and things.
I actually know one developer, and developers are creatives. I'm going to just go out there and say that developers are creative. I know a developer who routinely runs with 7 screens, and each screen has a purpose. He actually listed them out the other day on LinkedIn. I was quite impressed with that. And he is a serious coder, that boy. He really is. But yeah, 7 screens. So I don't know. I think he might be a Windows man anyway. But yeah, he's not going to have his screen quota fulfilled by the current Mac Mini.
No. And I do feel as well, maybe this is something that we need to discuss at another time, but Apple needs to bring back eGPU support. And I wonder whether that will happen with M1X. Because a Mac Mini with an eGPU becomes a formidable proposition.
I'm still interested in the rumoured display with a chip in it that kind of does that, but in a different guise.
So I suspect Apple will sell the display, and then there's the option to have it with the chip, and that'll be a lot more money
And then the
But if
option-
you want it with a stand,
or an on switch.
they'll offer convenient mortgage options. I imagine. Our second rumour. This comes from Mark Gurman of Bloomberg.
Hi, Mark. How you doing?
I don't expect he's watching. It's in-screen Touch ID. So this is Touch ID on your iPhone that sits underneath the screen, so that you can have a fingerprint reader without losing the massive screen. Apparently, Apple have been testing this for a future iPhone model, not the iPhone 13.
Mm-hmm.
What do we think about that? And more generally, as well, I think it's a good opportunity just to have the quick Touch ID versus Face ID discussion.
So, first of all, I think this is going to come, but I think it's an amber. It's not going to come anytime soon. But going to Touch ID versus Face ID, I saw an interesting conversation the other day. I saw an advert. I can't remember what social media. It might have been on the Twitters for these apps that you can get for your phone that will change your face, make you old, take your hair away, or turn you into a girl or a boy, whatever. All those different things. Put beard on you. A few people were making the comment that basically what that's doing, a lot of these apps are basically making a map of your face, and then those are being sold to sort of criminal organisations so that they can Face ID your phone. Now, I doubt that, because that seems like a lot of effort, because you've then got to go and find that person and get their phone to Face ID it, to put it in front of, to get what? There's a lot of effort involved in that. However, there may be some more nefarious reasons why people are doing it. So I've never been particularly comfortable with Face ID, I'll be honest. I'm always concerned that someone can just do that while you're not paying attention and unlock it. My son tries to do that sometimes, or one of them. Whereas Touch ID is a little bit more reliable or safe, I think.
I've got two lines of thinking with this. I don't think it's going to be very easy to do what you were suggesting, because the face would need to be a 3D sculpture, I think, in order to trigger it.
Have you seen any of the Mission Impossible films?
I have, unfortunately.
Yeah, at least one of the first 20.
They are filming a new one at the moment in the UK.
In the UK, yeah. Apparently, Tom Cruise was getting a curry in Birmingham the other day.
I thought it was London.
No, Birmingham.
Shall I ask Erin to look it up?
Yeah, could you look that up for us, please, Erin? I think you'll find it was London. Birmingham. I'm going with Birmingham again.
I thought it was a place called Asher.
It was Asher, but I think it was in Birmingham.
Okay. Go on. Anyway, I've totally ruined the story. I was going to say the same story, though. What I was surprised about was he enjoyed the curry so much, Pete.
He had seconds. Now, I'm a big fan of Indian food. The UK's Indian food scene is great. I have had some in the US, not so great, but it may have just been where I went, which was the other side of the bay. I can't remember the name of it, next to Oakland, where nobody cares. Anyway, Indian food's really, really good. But in my experience, it's also, you always get full very quickly. So to have a tikka masala and then think, do you know what, I'm going to order another one.
What a legend.
And that's,
Either that or they're very small portions.
yeah, possibly. And the Hilton where he was staying had a fairly large job to do the next day, I would say.
If you're not used to eating curry, actually a chicken tikka masala, which is not Indian in any way, shape or form, that's a UK kind of invention, a coconutty type. It is delicious. But if you're going for a more heavy-duty curry, it's good to be prepared. Put some toilet roll in the fridge, that kind of thing.
Yeah. You don't want to be making plans the next day, like going on a plane or anything like that, do you?
Definitely don't want to do that.
For your own sake and those of the passengers around you.
Oh dear, Erin.
Birmingham.
Yes.
Oh, we're 1 for 1.
1 for 1.
Excellent.
Okay.
So it was indeed in Birmingham, as the Americans say.
Birmingham, and maybe one day we should go and try out Asher's, because apparently it's got quite the reputation for being awesome.
It has apparently £19.50 for that tikka masala, though, which in curry house terms is on the steep side.
Yeah, well, maybe a special podcast from an Indian restaurant one day might be in order. Who knows?
Anyway, in-screen Touch ID, Touch ID
Right.
versus Face ID. We didn't
Amber.
even finish that
Amber.
conversation. You think Amber? I don't understand why Apple just doesn't do what it's done on the iPad Air. where the Touch ID is on the power switch. Why not have that on your phone? Why not have Face ID as well?
Maybe they are, and maybe this is a rumor.
I don't see the point in having it under the screen when you could have it on the power button. I have to say, with your phone, particularly, I like to wear sunglasses. I can't unlock my phone with sunglasses on, so I have to take my sunglasses off in order to unlock my phone. You can't unlock your phone if you're wearing a mask. I mean, Apple have added something so that if it sees you're wearing a mask, it immediately brings up the
And
pin
you can
entry.
unlock it if you've got your Apple Watch attached and
You can.
set.
You can, yeah. But that requires having an Apple Watch. I think the Touch ID was always way more useful on an iPhone, whereas Face ID on a laptop or an iPad when you're using it like on a stand as we are with a larger iPad, I think Face ID makes more sense. But there we go. Just what I think.
But often Apple, they'll explore these things just to know that they can do them without necessarily doing them. So, the button might come first, and this may be a few years down the line. We've seen a lot of patents that Apple have done that have taken years to appear in actual product.
Good. Okay, so we're saying amber on that one. Certainly don't expect anything like that in iPhone 13. The third rumour I've selected comes from DigiTimes. What they're saying is that there will be multiple, and I think by multiple they mean 2. I'm just going to say that. Apple launch events in September. So they think one focused on the 9th generation iPad and one for iPhone 13 and Apple Watch 7. What do you think?
It's difficult. I mean, last year we had an event that covered all of those things in one event. So all the new iPads, the iPad Air, the phone, and the watch, I think, in one event. Am I right?
Yeah, I think you are right. Yeah. Shall I get Erin to look it up again? No.
No. Feel free to, Erin, because I think I'm right. So it seems like they're stretching things out if they do it like that. I could see there being multiple events if there is Mac product coming. So I could see the iPhone and the Apple Watch being one event, and then the iPad and some Mac product of some kind being another event. Because I don't think, the iPhone is its flagship product in terms of revenue. The Apple Watch complements that really well, so those make sense going together. I could see iPad and Mac going together. So I'd say it's ambery green.
Okay, and I don't think we'll see Macs in September. I would expect October or a November event for that, which I've said previously.
Not even an announcement.
No, I don't think so, because I'm just going on what M1 was. I mean, the event was October and the product's released in November, if memory serves. So that's what I think is. A lot of people think the same as that. I think Apple will focus on consumer products with the iPhone, the Apple Watch. Will they split out the event separately for the iPad? Not for the 9th generation iPad, I wouldn't have thought, because I can't imagine Apple's going to do. This is the entry-level iPad at the end of the day. I can't imagine they're going to do a massive change to it. And wasn't it actually revised with a new chip anyway last year?
So, and that's why I think if there are going to be 2 events, so one event, if it's just an iPad, phone, Apple Watch, okay, one event, because I can't see that there's going to be anything groundbreaking. 2 events, if there's something that all of us have completely missed in the iPad world that's groundbreaking, I don't think there is, but 2 events if it's iPad and something Mac related.
Yeah. And of course, there is also the iPad mini, which wasn't mentioned, I don't think, in DigiTimes, but that is due for a refresh. That's the only iPad in the lineup that didn't get a refresh last year. It would certainly benefit from, new chip in it. There is talk of it getting the mini LED display, and if they were going to do that, then you'd probably think they would also put it in the smaller iPad Pro.
Yeah.
So, possibility of that. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened in a spring event next year. So I'm on the fence with that. Will Apple have multiple events before the end of the year? Yes, at least 2. Will they have 2 or more in September? Not convinced.
Maybe.
Maybe.
But are we going to cover what said events?
I think we do need to. Although what I've noted before, and guys, let us know in the comments what you think about this. I have noted before. I mean, the content that does really well on the main channel is Mac based, and I have done bits of iPhone stuff before, and it's never been that popular. But I do want to cover it, and I think we should cover it. And I suggest that maybe we do a live stream after the event. Let us know, folks. Would you be interested in watching that? I think last time we did it before and after, didn't we? And that was a bit too much.
Yeah, I think after, because then we get a chance to interact with you guys to see what you think of the event. And yeah, it was too much, both I think for everyone watching and for us preparing. So we want to be lazy about this. Let's be fair. Yeah.
No, I think that would work well. So if you're interested in that, let us know. Obviously, it depends when Apple announces the event, and it depends on our availability. But if we could do a live stream afterwards, we would. We've also been thinking about another live stream, which I just wanted to mention to the audience, because there's an opportunity for one of you to join us on the live stream. What we're thinking about doing is probably an hour-long show where we want to talk to people who have got M1 and it's been a genuine life changer. Do I mean life changer? Work changer. It's been a revelation in computing, if you like. So we've got 3 people in mind already that we know that we think will add value, and I think it'd be an interesting conversation. And one of them is a YouTuber.
Both of them are YouTubers.
They are both YouTubers, actually. 2 of them are YouTubers, I should say. We are 3 people interested.
Yes.
You can't say there are 3 people interested and then say both of them are YouTubers.
Or you can if you're referring to the 2. But they don't know that. You don't know that. Sorry.
And we haven't even spoken to them yet, so they might just say, no, sling your hook. We're not interested in being on your ropey show. It'll be on the main channel if we do it. So it'd be a live... We'd do it as a live thing, and you'd be able to join via a webcam or something like that. You need to have a decent internet connection, and you need to have an interesting story to tell about M1 and be able to, present yourself in a reasonably coherent manner, unlike us.
And have better dad jokes than me.
Ideally.
Clean ones, please.
If that interests you, then drop us a line, podcast@constantgeekery.com, and we'll see who gets in touch. Let us know what you think, why you think your story is interesting. So what we're particularly, I'll tell you what we've got already in mind is a photographer who is not very tech literate, but is that
he doesn't come from a tech background, so
yeah.
Tech for him is very much a means to an end, whereas for us it's the be all and end all. Technology just has to work for him to get the result that he needs.
Yeah, so that's not the right term. He is tech literate, but he's not into the behind the scenes stuff. He doesn't want to particularly be interested in CPUs and RAM and this, that, or the other. He just wants the machine to work. And when he spoke to me about his experience with his M1, I just thought it was a really compelling conversation. Really interesting to see how it's genuinely changed his workflow. So I thought that was interesting. Possibly someone who's doing a bit of video editing on a Mac Mini, and then we've got someone who has done a bit of web development on the M1 Mac. So that's what we've already got lined up. Have you got something in addition to that? Maybe music production or something like that, or anything else really that you're using your M1 for
That's interesting.
Yeah, and that's genuinely changed. I mean, the computer needs to have genuinely changed your workflow and made it better in some way. And we'd just like to talk to a few people about that and any of the roadblocks that you've encountered along the way. I think it'd be a really interesting episode.
Yeah,
So,
and we're proposing to do that live, just to be clear.
Yeah, I think so. I think we'll get the most natural result if we do that, and it's less pressure.
Yeah,
I know that sounds weird,
no,
but there is less pressure when you do it live, because at the end of the day, people accept mistakes and stuff when a thing is live.
We hope,
or even when it's been pre-recorded sometimes.
Yeah. Okay.
So let us know what you think in the comments section if you think that's, first of all, of interest, and get in touch if you'd like to be involved.
And can I just say at this point, we are standing rudely at 955 subscribers as of this moment on the podcast channel, on the YouTube podcast channel. We know there's lots of you that listen on other platforms. Thank you for that. If if you haven't yet subscribed, it would be great if you could, because we'd love to get to that mythical 1,000, which has, it's just a milestone to get to, isn't it?
It is. It does help us because YouTube does kick on your channel a bit when you hit these various milestones, 1,000, 10,000, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So if you feel so inclined, that would be great.
I think that's it for this week.
It probably is. 55 minutes. That's pretty good.
Excellent. It is a holiday weekend in the UK this weekend, but we are still going to podcast next week.
Absolutely.
I have got no idea what we'll be podcasting about. It may well be the case that Apple has released a date for its event by that time, in which case we'll probably talk a bit more about that.
If not, we can talk about, human usurping robots a bit more.
And just a question to ponder, Pete. If you were a robot, would you have fallen off your chair before the podcast?
I probably wouldn't have been able to get in my chair. I don't think that's... But
Okay. And if you were a robot, would you tell better jokes?
that's a very binary question. There's either a yes or no answer to that, and I don't know.
Excellent.
My jokes are excellent, so no.
Good. Well, on that note, anyway, thanks everyone for tuning in to episode, 27 of season 2 of the Constant Geekery podcast.
Yeah, cheerio.
Cheerio.
Did I tell you, by the way, I'm starting a new job next week?
No?
It's part-time,
Hmm.
but yeah, working in a full-size cuckoo clock. The money's not great, but it's going to get me out of the house.
I'm going to turn it off now.
Okay.